Hey, everybody, welcome to the Cindy Donaldson Show. I am your host, Cindy Donaldson. I'm a certified high performance coach, serial entrepreneur. I mean, crazy serial entrepreneur, bucket list obsessed. And yeah, I live full time in my RV traveling around the world. And well, actually around the country, but I do hop on planes every once in a while. And I am obsessed with the mission to ensure that everybody I come in touch with learns how to not only create, but live their life by design. So if you listen to my last podcast, if not, you should go do that first before you listen to this one, because you are in for a treat today. I have a dear friend with me, Diane Crosby. Welcome, Diane, to the show. I'm so excited that you're here.
Thank you, Cindy. I'm honored to be a guest on your show.
So we are the Red Eyeglass Girls and super fucking capable SFC. So if you've been with me for a hot minute, you know that that's kind of my mantra. And I wanted to bring Diane on here because she is the queen of boundaries. She's overcome so much trauma and drama in her life. And I'm going to let her share what she wants because she has a book coming out. And I don't want to tell too much of her story if she doesn't want to release it. But she has been able to turn something horrific into something amazing. And the way she's able to shift from bad days to finding the sunshine and not only surviving, but actually thriving. So I know you're going to learn a lot from her today. I adore her. I coached with her for a while and I was the coach and but I felt like I took more notes, Diane, than you probably did. So I learned a lot during our 3 month, working together. And I'm so proud of everything that you've done. So I'm going to kind of let you take from here. I mean, the big question that I would love for you to answer is in your life, like when was the tipping point where you said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to change my life and I'm going to be something different regardless of what happened in my past. And again, you can share what you want about what happened or not, because I know, the New York Times bestseller is going to be out there and maybe you want people to hear it there. I don't
know. Well, first of all, again, I'm honored to be here, and I like, and I could say love sharing my story. And I usually spare people the gory details, but I think the details of everything that women in particular go through is important to talk about, because although we all have stuff in our life and we all have things that we overcome, and when you said, traumatic, horrific childhood, I mean, those are words, but until you hear some of the nitty gritty, it's ghastly. I'll use that word. But I'm not going to go into a great detail because, yes, I want people to read my memoir, which has been quite challenging to write, healing, and very hard, very hard. I'm not going to mince words there. But my childhood was pretty horrific. My father's a pedophile and continues to exist in this world. And the ripple effect that has occurred, and in not only my generation, I come from a family, I have 7 siblings, his, hers, and ours, and we all had different levels and so on of abuse. And for those who probably know, every experience of life is different depending on who you are, even though you may have lived in the same house. So it wasn't until I was about 19 years old, living on my own, putting myself through school and working 2 jobs, that some of the abuse came tumbling in. And most of those memories initially were from my half-brother, who had repeatedly molested me and my younger sisters. But I thought I was doing great. Well, okay, yeah, okay, oh yeah, that happened. Doesn't that happen to everyone? And yet I continued to what I thought was thriving. I was determined as a younger child, seeing the abuse that my mom undertook and didn't do anything. Although, interestingly enough, she was never physically abused like the rest of us, as far as I know. I never say I know anything about what anybody's experience is or was. But I was not going to be that woman who was subservient and needed a man to take care of her. So that struck me early on. part of what I did during that time was I kind of took on the role of caretaking her. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit. I then got married, had 2 children. First was a son, and loved him to death, and of course still do. And then I had a daughter. And when I was pregnant with her, and I like to share this interesting psychology of what our brains and what our emotional beings do. And that's when I started to lose it, totally lose it. I couldn't sleep. I was having trouble functioning because a lot of the memories were coming back. And I didn't know what she was, that she was a girl until she was born. I did not know with either child. And I
But
remember
you
saying
knew, but did you just know
exactly, I
intuitively?
did.
Yes,
I did.
you knew.
I didn't tell anyone, but I knew inside. And it wasn't until after she was born that I totally lost it. And a therapist told me that my inner self knew she was a girl. And that's why I fell apart, being pregnant with her as opposed to my son. So the story unfolded, and the drama just escalated terribly, because it was around that time when I spilled the beans, so to speak, opened that Pandora's box and made my family look at it. And that gets pretty ugly pretty fast, because people take sides, et cetera, for their own stuff. And a brother came forward and said, oh, by the way, it wasn't our half brother, it was our father. And then I went on a mission to protect the grandchildren. And again, I'm not going to go into a lot of it, but I just wanted you to understand that it was an explosion of what I thought was my family. And I was the one who stepped out of the dance. And so again, fast forward, I get divorced, and you asked for the tipping point. I don't think, for me, there wasn't like one, lightning strike and, oh, wow. It was little snips along the way, and part of what I just shared with you. And being raised Catholic, I remember as a young child in Catholic school, sitting, and I don't know what that nun said. And in my mind, somehow what came out was, this is all bullshit. And I went, my God, I don't swear I'm that shy, obedient 10-year-old or whatever I was. So I think the path was starting to already be open to me. So I get divorced and start tuning into myself more. Many of us in your generation were told our emotions were not to be shared, good, bad, or indifferent. We were supposed to be this numb, plain, vanilla kind of person, especially as a woman. And so that's what I did. I just sucked it all in. After I got divorced, I knew I wanted to regroup with my children. I wanted to rebond with them. It was their father's alcoholic, substance abuse, and totally went off the rails. So I felt that I knew I had enabled him for way too long, and I wanted to rebond and build a relationship, which I did. My kids, I remember we were playing games, board games, and we just were laughing. And one of my kids said, so I have 2, so it was just the 3 of us, said, Mom, I've never seen you laugh like this.
Oh,
now there's a light bulb moment. And so tipping point was when I realized I needed to really get myself in a healthier position. So I became very physically active. I started working out and running and marathon and triathlon and all that kind of heavy endurance stuff, powerlifting. And that helped me a lot. That helped me get through my divorce. It helped me through a lot of things. And then
why do you think that is? I mean, I want to interrupt for a second, because I don't remember, but I read an article someplace where, because I've done all that too, the marathon, the like climbing freaking mountains, you and I have and like the spousal thing, alcoholic, the trauma stuff. And I read that a lot of people who endured early childhood trauma or trauma at some point get involved in these hard endurance sports like long distance running. And like I wonder if it's the dopamine high, the endorphins, just something that you can control or conquer. Have you ever, because I know you do research on all of this shit and you're a curious cat. So I'm
I
curious if
do.
you ever figured that out.
Well, I only felt it in myself. I think you're absolutely right, because I can remember I was also teaching spin at the time, and I became a trainer. And it was the only time that I felt in control, was that I was doing something intense, either running, or I would take
Yeah.
spin classes 3 times a day, just so I didn't shake and didn't lose control. So I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And I've changed since then, by the way, because I realized that that was all external. Yes, it's your body, but what was happening inside of me? What about those emotions? What about those energy fields? And so, I mean, life happens. I always was and still am that person who wants to know what's coming next and make the plan. And I always did the New Year's resolution goals and so on, and still do, but I do it in a different way. And one of the threads that was happening through my life and continues to this day is I call it my man issue. I've never been able to have a quality relationship because, and I know it's what we put out, comes back, I attracted the wrong kind of man, the narcissistic, controlling. And I realize through lots of therapy and my own, you're right, research, if I think something's not quite right, I'll go buy a book. That was in the
I
days
have
when
libraries. Yeah.
you bought books. But primarily, I wanted to be a better mom. I wanted to stop although it wasn't called that at the time, the generational trauma. I felt a strong responsibility to protect the grandchildren. And I think there's like 40 of them.
Wow.
But unfortunately, he already had his hands on one for sure. And I believe very firmly several others. So that whole psychology of continuing to have a relationship with an abuser is a whole nother, we'd need a 3 or 4 podcasts for that one.
Yeah.
And then my daughter went off to college. I didn't date during the time, for the most part, when I was finishing raising them. My daughter went off to college. My son was in the Coast Guard. And I said, okay, let me focus on making some money and, maybe retire early and do something. I followed a lot of different mentors, business-wise, men, by the way, and really put myself in there. So I bought a business and it failed. And then I don't want to say homeless because I wasn't on the streets, but I didn't have any place to live. I had to sell my house and I didn't have any money. I literally sold my house with $100 to my name and I didn't have a job. So I strongly believe in the power of the universe and the law of attraction. And I believe that was the tipping point. I learned so much about how to create my own life, how to be I don't want to say master because I don't like that word, but I'll use it, the master of my destiny.
Yeah.
Nobody else was going to save me. And again, I was brought up in a generation where women found a man to take care of them. And that was what was expected of me, but I was not successful at that. And it always, was in the back of my mind, but you said, I'm talking to myself, you said you wanted to be independent. You didn't want to be dependent on a man or anyone else to survive. And you've raised your kids by yourself. What aren't you seeing here? So anyway, the business failed. I, again, have no place to live out of I don't know, somehow or other, this woman was planted in my life. Her name is Diane, and she offered me to come live with her. So I did. And then I cobbled together, I don't want to go into that into depth, but I actually had 5 jobs for a time. And I felt I was at the bottom, or at least as low as I could possibly go. And I said, okay, I've been following all these mentors all these years. Let me focus on one and let me actually do it. Let me do exactly what they say and see what happens. What do I have to lose? So I started doing daily affirmations, daily visioning of what I wanted. I wrote it down. I said it out loud because I always used to write it down. I always used to do that. But I feel that one of the key ways that the universe will send to you what you want is by saying it out loud and believing it.
I was just going to ask, did you really believe it in your soul?
I did. I absolutely
Yes.
did. I absolutely did. And it's what you hear all the time. It's until you hit rock bottom and you know there's no other way out. Are you really going to make a change? So I did it. I mean, I didn't do it in front of my roommate friend because she would have thought I was crazy. But I did it in the car, going to work, on the way home, before I went to bed, all of that. And it worked. I manifested a job making exactly what I said I was going to make. So
look at that.
That was in July. I started it right away, but I said by, I don't know, I don't remember exactly. I still have my vision, some of my vision boards, or at least I pull them apart. I look back at it because it reminds me when I get on my pity pot, how well I've done, and that I forget, and that sharing my story with others is powerful. And if I can help someone do that too, I would love to do that. But let me just continue that. So here I got the job. I could get rid of some of my jobs. I continued personal training because I do like different streams of income. I think that is powerful because life changes all the time. So I still did a couple of different things, and I always have something percolating in my mind that I want to do. So I did that. Now, the other thing I really wanted was to have a quality relationship with a wonderful man. So that was the other piece. So I did these 2 things in tandem. I found the man. Successful, could take care of me. Wasn't quite what I wanted and didn't follow my intuition. And 3 years later, that relationship dissolved, and I thought the grass was greener. I left that job, went somewhere else, and that tanked. So I believe that I made that happen too. I manifested the money, the job, successful career, and the man, and then poof. It seemed like poof, but I still had that internal belief system that said I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't good enough. Who would want this broken woman who was so badly abused and hasn't, what's her worth? So I recognized that and started to do it all over again. Continued, and I still do it. I found another mentor that I followed. I've been in and out of therapy. And I said, if I did this before, I can do it again. And I do have a very tenacious streak, and I don't give up
just
easily.
A little.
And I reached down into what helped me run the marathon. I mean, I was the kid in high school sports gym class that was always picked last.
Oh, me too.
I had no ability. So I said, I'm not getting any younger. What am I doing? What kind of life do I want to live? So I bebopped around in different apartments. I left my friend who was so kind to help me get back on my feet. And it's a constant evolution, on that journey to what do we really want in life? So what changed is I stopped powerlifting. Of course, I had already stopped running. And I had always said, when I get old, I'm going to do yoga. So I started doing yoga, but after I lost everything and I was living in an apartment I didn't like, and I, lost them, all that, I said, okay, what haven't I tried? And that's when the light bulb went off that what I didn't try was going inside. What's in here? We all know that we only use about 5% of our brain capability.
Oh, yeah.
What can I do differently? So I started following some, I'll call it out there kind of mentors, and right in line with the law of attraction and manifesting. And I said, okay, I did the business side of the manifesting and the affirmations. How about I tap into my power even deeper? What's inside? So I started meditating, doing yoga, spending more time outside. Nature has always been something that I love, but I didn't spend a lot of time outside because I was too busy working. I was workaholic, and I only figured that out a few years ago. Like, holy crap. I said to someone, I'm going to start taking weekends off. And when the words came out of my mouth out loud, I said, holy crap, how sad is that? I am 60 whatever years old, and I'm only going to now start taking weekends off. So anyway, it's a continuing of that path of what's inside of me that I can manifest.
So I coach a lot of people who are our age, and many, of course, I attract people who are like me, right? Who have gone through some kind of shit in their life and are masters of survival. Like the pandemic, you probably it didn't really, I'm like, okay, pandemic, this is what we got to do, wear a mask, get a shot, do whatever. And you kind of just go back into that survival mode of what do I have to do. But people like you and I have a very hard time doing what you just said, like going inside.
Yes.
And learning how to thrive beyond the survive. Like I too was a workaholic, right? And ran the marathons and push. I was the woman who brought their kids into their office and they slept even though they had a cold or something, had the flu. And I'm like, gotta meet this deadline, gotta be the top salesperson, gotta. And it's very hard to slow down and go internally. Do you I get asked this question a lot with people, especially who have ADHD. Do you have a hard time meditating? Like, was that difficult for you to slow down and actually? Yes. It was.
And it
Talk
still
to
is.
me a little bit about it. Is okay, because it is for me too. Yes. I have to really work to turn my brain off and say it's okay and not feel guilty about taking an hour or whatever.
Right. And I learned, well, I just made this in this, you can relate to too. It's the same kind of, MO that we do.
Yeah.
I made up my mind I was going to learn to meditate. So I was effing gonna do it no matter what. And so I'm a really good routine person. So getting up, having a separate chair and just sitting. And I followed Abraham Hicks, for anyone who knows Esther. And the guided meditation was more helpful to me at first. And sitting in silence is hard for most of us humans because sadly, as soon as we're born, we lose our sense of being and we become a doer. So it's hard to change that. And then when you add in the trauma of growing up for me, living in a household that was fraught with violence, and there was always something going on. So it was constantly in that fight or flight mode. And I didn't realize it until many, many years later that those are the men I chose, those are the friends I chose, that were in that, and also the jobs I gravitated to. I thought, I do better. I do such a great job when when the house is on fire. So I've worked in industries that where it's so
Oh yeah,
line driven.
me
And
too.
so anyway, meditating, yes, continues to be hard. But I've also learned Eckhart Tolle. Anybody who might
Yeah.
know Eckhart, who I love, that was my next step. He doesn't meditate in the traditional way. And this kind of gave me some freedom. What he does is he does mindfulness walks. He's a big outdoor person. And I do that too. You and
Yeah.
I talked about
Yeah.
that a lot. That is more meditative many times than sitting for 10, 15, whatever it might be. But I do both, but I so enjoy being outside with my headlamp on these days. And just, a friend of mine coined it because during COVID, we would go hiking together. It was, okay, forget the gym, quit that. We're going to do move around the earth gym. And I've really embraced it. The ocean is my sense of, it centers me. It brings me back to center to go to the ocean and just listen to the waves. So I think for me, continuing to learn what might work.
So I kind of want to go back to a few things. One is, why do you think people like you and I, gave birth to children who, against all odds, should have probably been train wrecks, but not that they're perfect, but they turned out okay. We turned out okay, and we learned how to thrive. Yet so many people that have gone through that just really struggle. Like, and again, I've done so much soul searching and again, therapy coaching and everything around this.
I have an
But
answer.
oh, tell me, a wise
It's
one.
my answer. I don't know if it's the right answer, but like you, I've spent 30 plus years trying to understand what's happened in my family of origin and seeing, 7 others who I'm mostly not close to. Those are the boundaries that I've set. I don't speak with
You
more
are
than
the queen,
right.
the queen of the boundaries. You have that title.
I try, but it's not as black and white as it sounds. It's really, really hard, especially
It
this
is.
year. It's
Yeah,
extremely
it
hard.
is.
But anyway, listening to some of my siblings talk about this and something that you just said, I know a lot of the grandchildren were horrifically abused too by the pedophile, and yet their parents are, I believe, in denial and don't recognize it, because some of what I hear is, well, I turned out okay. And so my answer, what I see is, those are people who won't look because it's too painful. And I'm not being critical. I'm really not. I
No.
understand and I love them anyway. But it's too hard. It's too painful. So, and that's what's settling for life, how life has hit me. And I say that not for me, because I don't believe in that. I believe every day of our lives, we have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose to, woe is me. You can choose to just think everything that's happening in the world now is negative and awful and we're all doomed to die. You could do that. Or you can say, glass half full person. I'm going out into the sunshine because I'm feeling a little grumpy this morning. Let me get out of here. And you make your own way and you surround yourself by people who are that quality. I mean, none of the human condition is not perfect. We're
Oh
all
God, no.
here. We're all here. I heard this not that long ago. We're all here helping each other to get home. We're all here helping each other get home. What home is different for every person. I do not believe in organized religion in any way, shape, or form. But I do believe in a spiritual power. And I've learned that by, holy crap, look what I created. So here I am went from losing it all, cobbling an income out of 5 jobs, to making 6 figures several years and saving a lot. And I bought You can't see it, but I bought a beautiful house. And, you know, some said that wasn't the wisest decision at my age to do that. And yet I am still overcoming that I'm not worthy, that who do I think I am? And I do it every day. I have to remind myself every day, because it's very easy for me to go back there to that belief system that, you know, is ingrained in us as little children. And unless you face it, unless you look at it and make a different choice, that's going to be your life.
I shared in my last podcast that I had when I was in I was in a horrific relationship and I was really at a rock bottom. I had two friends who had to do an intervention because I just couldn't get myself out of bed. How my kids even, I don't even know. I really don't know. It was kind of a blur. And anyway, went to a psychiatrist and, he sat and listened to my story. And I was a little hesitant to go to a man. And I don't even remember his name, but he literally held my face in his hands, which would probably be totally inappropriate now, and said, Cindy, you are not mentally ill. You are not broken. And you have a choice to make. You can go back to that. You can stay with your ex, well, my husband at the time, and the abuse is going to continue. He's not going to change. You have no control over what the hell he does. And it's not going to get any better. Or you can take care of yourself. You can go get a job. You can get a divorce. The choice is yours. Like, he has no power over you. You think he does, but he doesn't. And that is something that has stuck with me for 30 something years. And you and I have talked about this, like, I don't believe in forgiving people that have done really bad shit to me. Like, I have relatives I don't talk to. And it does get hard around the holidays because there are people that have forgiven them, but I'm not going to apologize for that. But I don't give them power anymore. Like, you go live your crazy freaking life, do whatever you want, but you're not going to affect me anymore because, I have boundaries, not nearly as good as you, queen of the boundaries, but I do have boundaries. And so I 100% agree with you. Like, yes, there are people with deep mental illness that have really struggled with that. And I hope that they know that they aren't alone and they can go get help. Like, you and I have spent a lot of time in therapy.
And
I
a
don't know
lot of
about you,
money.
but a lot of money. And I've been on drugs. I was on drugs for a while to help stabilize, just to get me out of bed and freaking get a job. Like, I don't think there's any shame in that. But like you, I have spent my whole life learning how to not be my parents. Like,
Yes,
and it
exactly.
never ends. Like, people think because I'm a coach now and I help people through this that I figured it all out and it's my journey's. I'm like, it is not over. Like,
It's never over.
Every day's a new day, and it is hard when you have to start over, especially when you're our age and you're like, oh, well, now what do I do?
Right.
Well, you
That's
just
right.
go back and do it all over again, like you learning how to meditate. Like, and that survivor thing is very difficult to get over. Like, you and I make it seem easy sometimes because, like, oh, we just did it. We woke up and we said, I'm not going to have a pity party anymore. It is not that easy. It
Oh,
takes a lot of dedication and self-love to do that.
yes,
So
a lot.
I want to talk before I hit record, we were talking about the pity party thing. And you allow yourself 15 minutes, which I think that's amazing. Because sometimes I go for a day or two and then I'm like, okay, Cindy, enough. Get out of your freaking pajamas, take a shower, put some makeup on, and like, get your gratitude journal out. How did you get to just 15 minutes? Like, how do you do that? Because I'm fascinated. I didn't
Well,
know that about you, that you only allowed yourself 15 minutes. So
yeah, I only just told you that today.
yeah.
Well, because it's so easy. First of all, it's part of our human condition. This is scientifically true, that we go towards the negative. We do.
Yeah.
And we love people who will commiserate with us in our negativity and how everybody out there is out to get us, and, including the government, et cetera, et cetera.
Which is why I don't watch TV or the news.
Oh, I don't watch the news either. I do watch, I like to watch light Netflix happy endings.
Yes, exactly. Anyway,
But
didn't mean
it
to
was
interrupt. Go
actually
ahead.
a dear friend of mine years ago. I don't remember what was happening. Yes, I do. Actually, I do. Her husband was horrifically killed in an accident, and it came out to be what a not such a nice person he was, that had unraveled, and it was horrific. And I helped her through that. And she said to me, okay, I'm giving myself 15 minutes because her life went to hell in a handbasket. I'm giving myself 15 minutes and then I'm done. And so we would do that for each other. Okay, spill, vent, your sounding board. I'm going to hold space for that, the angst, the grief, all of that. And so it just became something we would say to each other. And I might grouse to her about something and say, okay, you have 15 minutes on your pity pot. And so now I do it for myself. If something goes awry, I'm human. I'll like, holy crap, the sky is falling. And I say, okay. And it's like a timer, literally. I mean, it's honestly not 15 minutes exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it's 20 minutes. And I will just, okay, this is horrible. I work a full-time job and I do other things. So I have a staff that supports me. And sometimes they really suck at it. And so I just like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I just let it go, but within my own space. I don't do that to anyone. Anger at someone is a terrible thing to do, but you have to get it out somewhere. Or I'll just put on my sneakers and I'll just stomp out the door and I'm gone. But it really, just the fact that I say, oh, you have 15 minutes. It's like an alarm that gets set off, not only in my brain, but in my, that emotional energy. So okay, whatever it was, and it could be a person, a breakup or whatever. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. And it might be 15 minutes a day until you get over that relationship breakup. But I think we owe it to ourselves to let that go, let it happen. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry. It's cathartic. And everyone in life needs 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people who will help honor that space. So I do that with not as many friends as I'd like, honestly, because we've talked about the tribe I'm recreating in life. I'm always recreating. And but my daughter is one of them. My son is another. And okay, can you just, give me, I don't want you to tell me what to do. Like, that's the worst thing that people can do for each other is, well, yeah, he stinks and he was this and that, just to, jump on your bandwagon. You just need to say, I'm going to hold the space for you.
I love that.
It's a safe space, safe place to do that.
It's almost like self-therapy in a way, right? Because when you go to a therapist, that's kind of your safe space. You could, tell all and do all, and therapists aren't allowed to tell you what to do. Well, they're not supposed to tell you what to do. Although I've had, my share that have said, not today, you're not going there. But it is that safe space. And I love that. So you give yourself the 15 minutes of whatever, then what? Like, how do you go from crying, angry, ready to punch somebody out to like, okay, like talk us through what that process kind of looks like.
Okay, so I'll give you an example, and this is a piece in my my memoir in the book, so I'm going to reveal a little bit. A couple of years ago, as I was starting to write this book, and some of the revelations about my nephew, about the pedophile father came out, and that was new information over a couple of decades, and I was distraught, absolutely distraught. I thought I had saved several of the grandchildren and I hadn't, and I felt so responsible.
Oh, wow.
And I could actually cry right now because it's still pretty raw. But it was an October day and I was working from home. I think it was COVID. And I just had to get out of I could feel the insides, just like I couldn't,
like your heart hurts,
couldn't get comfortable. Right. Yeah. Yes, you're right. My heart was just broken. And there was a voice inside somewhere that said, get out, pack a bag, pack a backpack, bring a journal, bring a pen, get your sneakers on, it was late October, the sun was setting early, and get in the car. And it was almost robotic. And I couldn't hurry fast enough. I gotta go. And I got in the car and I drove and I said, where am I going? But I was literally led to the ocean. It's a walking path, well known in Rhode Island, where you walk through the woods and then it opens up into the ocean and there's a bridge and so on. So, and I kept thinking, okay, I'm going, and my pace was getting a little bit faster and faster because the sun was setting and I did not want to be out in the dark in the woods. And I come to the clearing and opening, and I just stood there and I looked at the ground, and there were big rocks, like fist size. And I've been to this place many times. So where did these, I never saw these before. And all of a sudden I went, this is why you're here. You came to get rid of that anger, the pain, the sadness, the loss. I set my backpack down and I started hurling rocks. So that was like a pity party for whatever time it took me. And I finished, I don't know when. I yelled and screamed, cried. And by the way, this place is usually pretty popular, though, people. I saw one person fishing way down.
Oh, wow.
Otherwise, they would have called 911. So, and then it was released. And I think that's, for me, that 15-minute pity pot time that I spend is, it gets rid of it. So it's almost, when you get out of a nice hot shower or a tub, or something that's really peaceful, you have that relaxed state of, whew, that was wonderful. There wasn't anything for me to do except I sat and I journaled and I got up and went home. So I had let it go. And that's, I think, the importance of having some kind of ritual that helps you to release. Because if you don't release it from yourself, it's going to go somewhere. It's either going to stay in and it's going to be exploded somewhere else. And that's where there are a lot of addictions to substances, food, all of that. That's what we do. We internalize. And, I've been there with chocolate. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And I think the theme here is that you have to take action. And you have done so much work on yourself, and your subconscious mind is incredible. Like, I am fascinated with the reticular activating system, your subconscious, and what you tell yourself. You really do search it out, right? So your mind at that point knew what you needed, and the voice was probably yours, like, to get out. Although I do believe in, like, my grandmother comes to me a lot. She was my muse. Like, I'll just hear her, like, her voice in my head. But you have done the work. And so the secret is to take action, right? Kind of like you said, like, you move or you don't.
That's so true. And a couple of years ago, I was introduced to this book. I guess it's pretty well known. It's called The Body Keeps the Score. I had no idea. Yes, my mind knew, but the stuff that I've been holding in my body needed to be released. Many a therapist said, several said to me that I had not gotten in touch with my anger and that I needed to do that. But none of them could tell me how.
Yeah, I mean, oof, I've had that same conversation with multiple therapists, and I mean, I've been pretty open about my relationship with my mother, and she died at the age of 45. And finally, I had a therapist who said, I want you to go to the grave and just yell at her, like, just get it all out. And kind of like you throwing the stones, it was, I don't know, there was like a peace after that. Like, I'll never have any real closure with my mother, but because she died so young, and where I'm a completely different person now than I was when I was 20.
Right.
But, like, who knows what that relation, who knows? And I don't know her story because she was very secretive. But in any event, it is like you have to do the action. And if you're looking for all the answers from your therapist, you're like you've got to figure this shit out on your own. And the only way to do is you just got to try.
Yes.
Create that safe haven for yourself and just believe, like you said, that you can have a better life.
And a relationship with myself.
Yes.
That has been huge, absolutely huge. And I know this is, kind of overused, is my inner child. I've
Yeah.
learned, but by having grandchildren now, I've learned so much about what my inner child lost, never had. I didn't know how to play. I truly didn't. I never felt loved, ever. So those things, you don't think about it a lot. You don't even realize you feel that loss until something happens in life. And it's not only grandchildren, it could be whatever it might be.
Yeah. You don't know if you don't know. I mean, that's how you were brought up, right?
Right.
Like, and you say you're often, in books and stuff, it'll say like history repeats it. You like if you grow up in an abusive household, you're going to marry an abuser. You and I did that. Like, okay. Like, and it took seeing that. I mean, for me, a tipping point for me was when my daughter, like my ex-husband, was going on some kind of a rampage, and she came to me hysterical. She goes, "You have to divorce him. Like, enough." And I was like, "Oh shit." Talk about mommy guilt, right?
Yes.
And letting go of the guilt. I mean, I work with my therapist now all the time on this. He's like, "Cindy, you have, Catholic guilt, mommy guilt. Somewhere in the back you've got Jewish guilt." I did 23andMe and I was convinced that I had Jewish ancestry, but I don't. But I was convinced because I that is my thing. Like, I feel guilty very quickly because, like,
Unfortunately,
you feel like everything is your fault, like you did something wrong.
and part of that is who we are as women, because we have been so downtrodden by the patriarchal system. Those beliefs in the generations before us of women who were forced down and held in a subservient roles, no matter what they were. So, I mean, love to do a podcast on all of that.
I feel you're going to
That's
be back.
that's fascinating. The whole thing is fascinating.
Is fascinating. It
So,
is.
and we don't recognize that those are beliefs that are wrong. We think, well, that's the way it is. So that's what we do. Like, you can't change that. And that's a sad truth for a lot of people. And then going back to my family, who they think, oh, we're great. We survived this. You survived it physically, emotionally, not so sure.
Yeah.
But who am I to say? So it's the let them theory. Mel Robbins. I'm
Yeah.
so glad I finally found a woman mentor.
Let them, yes.
The let them theory, I listen to that periodically to remind me I'm not responsible for anybody else's emotions and anything except myself. And that's also what has helped me to set the boundaries around my inner peace.
Amen. Amen. I mean, again, I think another part of being a fantastic survivor is you learn how to get away from like the physical abuse or whatever, but then it's the spiritual and the emotional part of yourself that is where the healing comes in. You can take yourself out of a bad situation, and that's an amazing first step. That's what you have to do. But the lifelong work
Mm-hmm.
is learning to love yourself and doing, getting out on your back porch like you do in the morning. And
Yes, I do.
what is the phrase that you say? I forgot it.
What I say, the whole thing is, I am open and receptive to all, and I make it up, love, joy, peace, and then I cut myself some slack and say compassion, forgiveness, acceptance, and then I put a little funny things in there.
But like, listeners, this is the important part, right? If you feel like you are stuck and you just can't get beyond it, like, you have to take the first step. Get outside the comfort zone, because you do have control over how you react to any situation. I preach that all the time, and I have to remind myself all the time. I have to remind myself that I have adult children. And that, like you, Diane, you'll be there for them and you will mentor them. But at some point,
Absolutely.
they have to make the decision to go do what they want. And as a parent, that is painful to sit back and watch that. But you and I turned out to be great moms. We
Those are the
really
best,
did.
those are the best lessons. And my kids will say I'm, a great mom. Sometimes I don't quite believe them because I know my missteps, but we all have missteps.
Oh God,
And,
nobody's perfect. Yeah.
and the most important thing is when an adult child comes and says, mom, we have to have this conversation, this and that. Accept that. Honor that space for them to tell you sucked at whatever. The worst thing to say is, well, I did the best I could. Well,
Oof.
that is just so demeaning and patronizing. Of course you did the best you could, but you can now learn something new. As an adult with an adult child, you can create a different relationship because sometimes those children need to speak something because none of us were perfect.
Oh God, no. 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 Everybody has a story and everybody has a dark story someplace. And you just never know. I think you and I are open books and we talk about it all the time, but and then sometimes we'll look at other people and be like, they seem like they have all their shit together. And they really don't. It's a facade. It's kind of like my parents, I mean, I don't know. It was kind of like I think you shared in your family too. Like you just shove it under the rug and then nobody will know about it. Because God forbid we sully the family name,
Well,
right?
that's right.
I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like that used to hurt more than anything. It's bad enough that my brothers were crazy. I have one who's truly a psychopath. And my father would blame me every time my brother would go off the rails. And, you know, it was always my fault. Well, you egged him on, or you did this, or you did that. Like it, anyway,
We are
again,
only
another whole
responsible.
podcast.
We are only responsible for ourselves. But it's what you said before, to take the action. And it doesn't have to be big action. It can be simple.
No.
So I'm big into the circadian rhythm and light and dark, and we're coming into the winter solstice. And what you said about getting out every morning, I do that. One of the first things I do in the morning is I nowadays put a coat on, go out onto my deck, and the sun is just starting to rise or wherever, depending on how I slept the night
Yeah.
before. But the light, even if it's not sunlight, on your face, on your eyeballs in the morning, and just breathing in that fresh air. There's nothing fresher than that morning air. And
It's
I talk to
incredible.
birds, I talk to the trees, I move a little bit, I breathe, and I am so appreciative of my backyard, the simple things. And that sets the tone for the rest of my day. Yes, I exercise. Yes, I meditate, all that kind of thing. But that simplicity of walking outside for 5 minutes, rain, snow, whatever. Sometimes it's only 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes it's 20. But I recommend it highly to anyone. I don't care where you live, in the city, doesn't matter. That
Yep.
morning is precious.
It's precious. I ease my way into the day. I am not one to hop out of bed and I've never been able to do that. So I give myself 2 hours, which may seem extreme to some people, but at 61 years old, I'm giving myself that gift. When my kids were little and I had to shuffle them off to school, I would just get up a half hour earlier just to have peace. And I'd get
That's
up, get my coffee, go outside, do whatever.
That is so good. In fact, many of the mentors and the successful people that I follow or know of, that's exactly what they do. They do not run into the day. Now, that used to be me. I'd get out of bed, put my sneakers on. I'd either be out for a run or I'd go to the gym. I'd always go out early so I could get back before my kids were, getting them off to school. But now I don't. I don't rush into my day anymore either. And most of the time I won't make an appointment before 10 o'clock. And that's what, again, the successful people do. They put themselves first.
Put
And
themselves
that
first.
is
Yeah.
setting themselves up for success.
So when I was training for marathons and running a lot, that's what I would do. Like get up at 3:30, eat, go to the bathroom, do all that stuff. So you could be on especially in the summer, so you could be on the trail as the sun's coming up. And I did that for a very long time. And then because of my knee injury, I couldn't run anymore. I feel guilty about not hopping out of bed and putting my running shoes and going and just laying there in bed. And
I
I
know.
I kind of do some meditating there. I just lay there, I'll look out the window, look at the birds, play with my grand dog now. And today I went for an hour and a half walk outside with my grand dog in the middle of the day. I was like, you know what? I work for myself. Like there's nothing urgent. I'm just gonna go enjoy. And it's 40 degrees and crisp and beautiful. It was like, blue skies. And it was just, I came back and I just felt so, like you said, centered.
Yes.
For me,
Yeah.
the mountains are more than the ocean, but I still love the sound of the waves. But I can only sit there for like a half hour. If I'm out in the woods, I could be there for hours. I guess that's
Forest
why
bathing.
RV, oh, the forest
Forest
bathing. Oh
bathing.
my God, yes. If you haven't done forest bathing, just go out and do that deep breath, smell the pine needles, and just listen. Don't talk, don't have music on, and just be, even if it's for 5 minutes. It is, ah, for me, that is better than paying my therapist.
It is. And I'm glad you made the point about, listening to music. I do not do my walk, anything with,
No.
sometimes once in a while, but it's very rare that I will do that. And so many people are missing out to be constantly plugged into the TV's on, the radio's on, the music's on, whatever. That's how you block your
Yes.
connection with yourself, by constantly being barraged by all kinds of things. And that starts the negative self-talk too.
Yes. Yeah. Like I'm a TikTok junkie. Like I will admit if I can just scroll for hours on that app and it's a guilty pleasure. But then I also found out that you're bombarded with negativity and it can make you feel bad about yourself. Like
Yes.
I've shared a lot that I've gained 40 pounds over the last year and I'm trying to figure it out. And so I made a mistake of searching one person, and then all of a sudden this toxic diet culture came down upon me and I started feeling really bad about myself. And
Mm.
so I was like, okay, recognize that. And because I was even putting like or listening to podcasts when I would go out and walk about health and
Mm.
wellness. Because I mean, I like that kind of stuff, but it stressed me out. Even though
Yes.
the information, some of it was good, you have to filter through all that shit. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm going back to my forest bathing, even if it's just walking down the road,
Exactly.
unplugged.
Yes. Yes. Very
So
powerful. Quick,
yeah,
easy, simple, cheap thing you can do for yourself.
yeah. So we're kind of running out of time. So I want to wrap up some stuff here. One is you have to take action, and it doesn't have to be a huge thing. It's got to be something. And oftentimes it's a decision that, you know what, not today, Satan. I want a better life for myself. And not getting hung up on the how as much, like how that's going to happen, but just believing that it will happen. So that's one. Two, your brain is a very powerful thing, and what you tell yourself matters. Three,
Yes.
nature is a sanctuary. Get outside, take the time for yourself. And lastly, your past, although affects who you are, it doesn't have to define your future unless you allow it to happen.
That's
So,
exactly right. Mhm.
Diane, you have an event coming up in Rhode Island. So I want you to share about it because if I was in, if I'm, I think I'm going to be on the West Coast or I would totally be there. So share a little bit about what you got going on.
So I'm doing a wellness retreat for women and sharing some of my story of how I've created what I have. And I'm doing it with a woman, the owner of Sundance Wellness. It's in Rhode Island. It'll be at Thrive Studio in Warwick. And we are together created this beautiful 3 hours on January 7th to help set new intentions on how to be happier, be healthier. We don't want to make it into do this, 2, 1, 2, 3. It's more about helping women to take that pause and go inside. There'll be some yoga, there'll be some meditation that'll be guided. There'll be some journaling, there'll be some community sharing. This is not going to be like other retreats where you go pick this modality, do that modality, and it's like, oh, what am I going to do? No, it's about being centered. in community. That's huge, because we were talking about earlier about, our tribes, like the people who honor space. That's what we're hoping to be able to introduce women to, that there's another way of becoming who you're meant to be in this life.
Yeah, we had talked about that on our last coaching session about maybe we're just stepping into who we were always meant to be. And women have such a hard time like doing that. And are you going to share some of your, like, you are great at the whole vision board manifesting thing. Are you incorporating any of that into this event?
We are. But instead of doing the actual vision board, because sometimes that gets a little too overwhelming, cutting out pictures and so on.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is we're going to break it down into a word or two that is going to propel you into 2024. What is the word that will keep you centered, you can keep coming back to? And so we're going to do a collage created by everyone who's coming to this event. We'll do it together and create it together.
Oh, how cool. Cool. Have you chosen your word or words?
No, actually, I haven't.
Oh, wow.
I have not.
I guess that's some homework you need to do, huh?
I do. Well, I'm still putting together my big ass calendar.
Oh, I
Hitler
love that.
style.
Yeah, Jesse
Yes.
Itzler.
So
Follow
yes,
him.
thank
Yeah.
you for reminding me. I need my word. My word this year, by the way, since we're almost done, was fun. I don't always get enough fun in my life. So we'll see. Stay
Awesome.
tuned. I'll let you know what my
Awesome.
word is.
So I know you have a few spots left. If somebody's interested and they're in the Warwick, Rhode Island area, how do they get in touch with you to sign up for this?
I think the best thing is to call me or text me. My phone number is 401-451-5965. And my email is crosby.diane, last name, first name, crosby.diane, DIANE, @gmail.com.
All right. If you're in the area, please take advantage. I know you have some, you're only allowing like 30 people, right?
We
Is that
only have a few spots
yeah.
left. I mean, we
Yeah.
have
So
early bird sign up, which I think is the 18th. So I encourage you just to, shoot me a text or an email, and I'll be happy to send you a little more info.
Oh my God, Diane, this was so wonderful. And folks, I hope you got a lot out of this. And I learned something new every time I talk to Diane. She has come into my life for a reason. We share so many things. And the first time I saw her on Zoom, I was like, oh my God, you have red glasses too. And I just connected with her. I was like,
Red glasses.
I always say, like, Diane is my people. She is my people. So thanks for joining us today. Again, I'm Cindy Donaldson. This is the Cindy Donaldson Show. To learn more about what I do, you can go to cindy-donaldson.com. I do have a group coaching program that is launching in early January. I've got a few spots left for that. All the information is on the website. Have an amazing day. And again, Diane, thank you. Don't go
Thank you,
anywhere.
Cindy.
I'm going to stop the record and we can chat after. So thanks everybody for joining us. Take care. Bye.